Nikon ZR. Sorry, C50. The Nikon's got my attention. Welcome to another video. My name is Magnus, and I like to talk about cameras, specifically DSLR and mirrorless cameras for video. So if you like that type of stuff, definitely consider subscribing. Yesterday I put out a video, and this is going to be similar to that, unedited, just straight thoughts as it comes along, and my opinion may change over time, but right now, I just looked at a bunch of videos for the new Nikon ZR. Now, if you don't know, this is a full frame camera that Nikon just announced that is specifically towards the cinema line. And it seems like it's in a marketplace where it wants to compete with now the Canon C50, but also with a Sony FX3. So small camera body and really keeping it simple, but introducing cinema features in the camera so that you can use it for video creation. Now, a couple of the specs that actually have my attention, and besides the nuances that have actually been, shown with the camera, such as the cards being a CF Express Type B, which is good, but then the second card is a micro SD card, and both of them you have to put it in to the bottom of the camera, like through the battery door, which is really annoying. But besides that stuff, what caught my attention is really the ability to record in Red RAW. And to me, RAW is something that I pay attention to and is really all I'll really ever shoot. I am not shooting RAW right now, to be totally transparent. I'm using the 5D Mark IV, which came out in 2016, but it's easy to have this camera since I don't use it much out on the field. It's easy to have this camera here, just set up with the lighting and everything's ready to go, and then use that. I might change it, but I'd say the 5D Mark IV is my most used camera, just only because I'm constantly doing video calls or filming YouTube videos, and it's easy to keep this camera that I don't use for any other purpose right here. However, when I'm filming professional shoots, most of the time, unless it's a long format shoot, I'm going to record in RAW, because it gives me so much flexibility. I am not one of those guys that actually pays attention to or cares about H.265 compression, H.264 compression, all of these, or ProRes, compressed ProRes. No. I mean, yes, it allows flexibility for playback, but it's far less important to me than the ability to really creatively dive deep into your footage and get incredible amounts of not only dynamic range, but color, right? That you can like tweak how you want it. And that's why I tend to lean towards cameras that can actually record RAW internally. Yes, I do believe that the Sonys can record RAW externally, but for me, that's just more cumbersome. I like to record RAW internally. I do have an Atomos Ninja V Plus, and that camera can record 8K RAW internally. When hooked up with the Canon R5 or the R5 Mark II, which are both cameras that I have, and I appreciate that. However, not necessary, at least for what I'm trying to do. Moving on. So this camera has my attention because of the internal RAW, and that's part of it, but the other part is that it's Red RAW. Now, I know that it's not 16-bit Red RAW, it is 12-bit RAW, and that 12-bit RAW is going to be a little bit different, and I know that software needs to be updated, for example in DaVinci Resolve, to be able to read that new RAW codec from this camera and be able to use it. Now, I also know that this is the first Red camera, or even though they're using their branding, and Nikon bought out Red, so they have the ability to do this, the first camera that can record RAW, Red RAW in particular, and have autofocus, which is amazing, and it catches my attention. That's one of the reasons why this camera has my attention more than the Canon C50, because of its ability to use that really great professional grade RAW. Now, the Canon C50 can record RAW internally too, so that's kind of like debatable on which one's better, but I have not experienced Red RAW, and I hear great things, and I would want to play and tweak with the color science, and yeah, you can basically get most RAWs to look like any other camera. It was filmed on any other camera, But with this, with the less work that I'd get and the 15 plus stops of dynamic range. Now, Gerald Nunn did a video on this camera too, and it's around 12 to 13, depending on noise reduction in post. But that's par for the course. Most camera companies will tell you they have 15 or 16 stops of dynamic range, but the usable amount, when you factor in the noise, is usually around 10 to 12 with most manufacturers lately, until you get to the really high price points of professional cinema cameras. So my opinion of this camera is like, didn't have my attention until I saw the price point, besides the red raw, the price point of $2,200. And that price point, I mean, granted, let's be honest, cameras are expensive. But when you have the tariffs going around and you've got Canon coming out with a similar camera, though I would say the construction is a little bit better, but their camera is closer to $3,900, and this is $2,200. You're over $1,000 cheaper, and you've got the ability to record in 6K up to 60 frames per second. 120 frames per second is cropped. That crop, you know, you can work with it if you want, and if you don't, I usually use 4K 60 when it comes to slow-mo, and not much more from there unless really necessary for a particular shot. So it's not that big of a deal for me. But this camera is interesting. I wouldn't say that it's something that I need or purchase now, and I would also recommend to you guys to, if you're looking for reviews because you're hot on wanting to get a camera now, this camera is not perfect. Like I mentioned before, the memory card slots, I don't know what the battery life is like. Some have mentioned it's a little over an hour, but also the fact that it only has one mounting point on the bottom and no other like screws, unlike the C50 that you can actually mount other things to it because it's got those quarter point screws on around the body, but this doesn't. So although it's not built like a cinema camera would necessarily be, you'd hope that you can actually, once you start going into it, rig it yourself, put a rig over it, and then start screwing whatever you need on it. But that 4-inch screen, from what I've seen, is incredible, and it's 1,000 nits, so it's pretty bright too. So with those factors into play, you might get something that looks really great. At the end of the day, I want an incredible image that allows flexibility to edit in post, and everything else, I'd work on it. And this camera has IBIS where the C50 doesn't, so that's one leg up for Nikon, because at least you can get a really good looking footage, pretty steady when you're handheld, thanks to the IBIS. I believe it's around 7 stops if I'm not mistaken, but regardless, you're able to record beautiful footage, a really tiny body, and go from there. Rig it out the way you want, and you're probably going to have to do that if you want to be a little bit more complex. And I'm not even mentioning that the audio is 32-bit float audio, which to me is almost like raw audio, right? It's almost like you get the ability of recording the way you want, and in post you can adjust it to get all your levels back should you have peaked the audio in recording when you were doing that. So this is more interesting. I hate to say it, but this is more interesting. And yes, I mostly own Canon lenses, but there's an adapter that they sell for Nikon Z mounts that you could convert, use other brand lenses on it. You could even use Sony Z mount lenses on Nikon cameras. So that's pretty cool. It's been a crazy week. That's why you're seeing another video from me. Minimal edits on this and probably no B-roll because I just want to get my thoughts out there. I'm paying attention to it. I like raw recording, and even though the bit rate, especially on those larger, I'd say frames per second recording, at 6K, you're going to get a really large files when you record off of them. But I'm kind of used to it. Going back to the 5D Mark IV again, this one was just recording cropped 4K, was 500 megabits per second. And the color was only 8-bit 422. And I put up with it. And I was able to create many 4K videos off of it. I loved it. And I just worked around that space. So CF Express Type B, that'll be able to record those more bit heavy video codecs like the RAW, like NRAW. And the Red RAW, but you'll get a beautiful image, and it really makes a difference when you record RAW. And that's why I pretty much do everything in RAW, because I think I should. And when it comes to like YouTube videos, I'll record those in RAW and then in post, edit, create a backup file should I need it later, or should I have to go back later to those videos, and then delete the RAW videos. It doesn't take up much space, at least when it comes to storing the files. But when it comes to editing, incredible. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Last thing I did want to mention, very important. You'll see a lot of videos coming out for this camera, just like you saw a lot of C50 videos coming out yesterday. I would recommend that you take the time to see what you like about it. But if you're not in an urgent need before buying this camera or pre-ordering it, take the time to wait for actual reviews to come out, because a lot of these tests are pre-production. And I did a video years ago when the 5D Mark IV came out that all of these early videos are like calling themselves reviews. And I'm not saying that they didn't fully look at the camera. Like, I believe Gerald Undun's video is pretty good. And he did a thorough test of the camera, but they've only had it for a limited amount of time. And I wouldn't say that there could be things written in those agreements where they get these cameras early, where certain things or certain words can't be said, and maybe other things have to be highlighted. I don't know. I've never had one of those agreements with any camera manufacturer, but I can tell you that over time, you actually get real reviews that'll give you the ups and downs, but I doubt it'll be too surprising after that. So give it time. I'm giving it time. I'm not saying that I need any of these cameras, but it's something to pay attention to. If I had to choose between the C50 and the Nikon ZR, I would probably go for the ZR at this point, even though I got a ton of Canon cameras. It's more interesting to me. And open gate, it's important, yes, but if I already have open gate, which I do, is it something that I need another camera to go for? Maybe. Who knows? Anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. Let me know your thoughts on this camera, and if you would be picking it up, and what do you think about recording in RAW? Let me know below.